So I'm here today chiefly because Osama says that ever since I wrote that column, which appeared in the Hindu, the man who traveled to 10,000 villages, which I saw outside on a screen also, people haven't stopped asking him about whether this mind-boggling number is true. And he tells them actually it's an underestimation, right? For 20 years, he's been hungry to meet people who live in the unseen corners of this country, largely because he believes that that's where India's real wisdom resides. He's been doing this for 20 years through Digital Empowerment Foundation, which he started from his bedroom with zero capital to teach marginalized Indians to use the internet. He wants to convert their wisdom and knowledge into their livelihood, or at least help them access information, opportunity, and their rights. His first village visit, though, happened many years before he started DEF. It was Islampur in Bihar's Betia, West Champaran, right? Where he spent summer holidays at his grandfather's home. I don't need to introduce him any more than this, I think. So let's dive straight into the conversation. Tell us about that first village, Osama.
So thank you very much. I also want to say that Priya is one of those people just, take phone and calls and send that, and ask you questions where you tend to tell the stories that perhaps you have forgotten and something like that. And also ask right kind of questions. So this is a village in Champaran, of course, where Gandhi had started his satyagraha. And it was a village which was a repetitive village in the sense that we used to live in Ranchi. Ranchi, incidentally, has 3 mental asylums. One of them is the biggest in Asia. And
Sama is full of trivia such as this.
And we used to go in summer vacations to Nana's village and stay there for a couple of months at least without father. So that was a big incentive because my father was very strict, used to be very strict at that time. This village is typical village in Bihar's village haven't changed much. And since Nana was an engineer at that time, not many people were engineer. He had large field, land and khet and, pond and fish and everything. So, but it was not the village that was thing. It was the liberty of exploring and be on your own was the crux of the life. Yeah. So 2 months, there was nobody asking whether you have studied or not, whether you have homework or not, whether you have classwork or not, whether you want to come back home or not, whether you have gone to the toilet, which is part of the building or not, or whether you have gone defecated somewhere else. So, and whether you have milked your own goat or you have milked somebody else's goat, or you have fished your own pond or fished somebody else's pond, or you have, whatever, I mean, wherever you go. So we usually are always out. We used to come at night, late night and explore and all that. So that was the village. But a few memories that lasted was that innovation kind of thing, like how you can fish in flood. You can really fish in flood just by blocking the way. All the fish will jump and you can go for dinner. Or something like if you are milking a goat and you want to have a curd, you can have it in 10 minutes because there used to be a leaf. You put it on the curd and it will become on the milk and then it will become curd in 10 minutes. So it was also freedom of exploration, freedom of access to education, freedom to be on your own was the thing that lasted very long. And I think after many years, I think when DF started, perhaps I got my childhood back.
That's brilliant. So freedom and innovation were the first 2 things you associated with going to the village. And tell us about this 10,000 number.
So like I was always somehow, I don't know, it is inbuilt. When I am in cities and when I am in corporate offices, I feel suffocated. and it is proven. I didn't know. So when I used to go home and be there for a couple of weeks, my wife will always tell that, I think you need to travel. And I said, why? Because, you are becoming irritable, at home. So I again choose a village to go and all that. And the reason why these things, I mean, not that before that I was not traveling, but the traveling was very high, because all the time my mind was working is that we have to provide connectivity to the people who have got knowledge and wisdom.
Yeah.
And I had this inbuilt that the real knowledge and wisdom is not in towns and cities, but it is in the villages. But it is not respected. This is also because when I was running my own company, when I was in HT and other places, I used to travel with Professor Anil Gupta for his Shodh Yatra. So I used to find that, there is a lot of wisdom in villages and all that, whether it's soil or agriculture or anything that you see, everything comes from there. So the real wisdom is there, but the money is not there. And that made me to, keep on traveling. And when children were growing, we always make sure that we don't go to cities, we go to villages. So we always used to go villages and explore and come back with, acha, ab yahan center lagana hai, yahan connectivity karni hai, and things like that. And it started getting multiplied, more and more multiplied. So the journey of insight found a reason to work for the wisdom so that they get connected to the people who are the consumer. That was actually
talking of consumer. I remember you told me that the India story, I mean, you basically turned the India story on its head, that like Indians are not just consumers. Talk a bit about that. Like everybody sees Indians as a large market who will buy their things.
Yeah, and we all hear from the world, America starts, you always think that India is one of the largest consumer market. The whole capitalism and is also like finding more and more consumer. So consumer is very much like, I want you to use my product. Right. And somehow that wisdom came to me that if my poor people and the village people are going to be consumer, who will use their product? Therefore, they will remain poor. Right. And I'm also seeing that Pepsis of the world and the Cokes of the world and all these packets of the world is reaching to the rural, but somehow their best product is not reaching the river side, and that is when I realized that when we do connectivity, we don't want them to be the consumer of internet to consume somebody else's information, but I wanted internet to have their information and the rest of the world use it. That was the original idea. And about 15 years back, I said that 250,000 panchayats should have a website. We have 28 official languages and 781, oral language should have its own thing. We have, 750,000 villages should have their website. And we realize that we are not creating information for the rest of the world to become our consumer, but we are only looking for, so information producers are others. That's what we realized.
One of the early experiments that you did in this field that worked?
So we started, Sachin Pilot was my first experiment. I told him that, can we make a parliamentary constituency as a website? And he agreed, and we traveled and we converted and we wrote a letter to parliamentary constituency that elected members, all the elected members constituency should have a website. Then we also created another project called Digital Panchayat, and we went to the Ministry of Rural Development and NIC, National Informatics Center, that every panchayat should have a website. And they agreed, but they said, no, we need data from the panchayat, what they're doing, how they're spending the money is the idea. But I said, no, but that is not the idea. The idea is that every elected member should have a local area website to project themselves. So they become a marketplace, they become accountability also. But somehow it didn't happen. They didn't hear, because bureaucrats make the policy where they don't want to be accountable, or for that matter, even the lawmakers. But it didn't go many places. But I also realized is that when you create a link, like road, infrastructure, or anything, I think people naturally first become a consumer and then become a producer. So we are now seeing that we are becoming producer of information, but perhaps, उससे पहले हम किसी और का message forward कर देते हैं आजकल, rather than producing our own information.
In an age where the internet is being weaponized by almost everyone, I think it's amazing. I mean, I'm really a huge fan of the work that you do. What parts of India do you love traveling to the most?
I've traveled Rajasthan the maximum.
Yeah.
And I don't know, वहाँ पे flat ज़मीन बहुत दिखता है तो लगता है कि आसमान तक देख रहे हैं, so that's why I think perhaps I like, and at that time the roads were very good.
Wide open skies, as my husband says.
Yes, you see a lot maybe, but we have covered Rajasthan a lot, but now I think most of the places we have covered except three estates in Northeast. Northeast is the latest fad now. We are going. Bihar is one of the poorest, but somehow I belong to that place, but somehow I find it very difficult to go back again and again to work. Also, I feel receptivity of work in rural areas. I think Rajasthan is very receptive. Madhya Pradesh is also very receptive. Bihar is receptive, but it has its own ecosystem of inertia. It doesn't really help.
Osama, you told me then that being a successful entrepreneur is also about your life decisions, how you follow your beliefs and convictions, and what leaps of faith you take. Can you elaborate on that? What leaps of faith have you taken?
So, I suffered a long time, for leap of faith. And for example, I don't know how many people know I took 8 years to graduate. I joined Air Force and left. And so everywhere, because I realized that most of the time, the thing that was meant for me was not happening and I was not getting suited to that place. And I don't know when it started happening, maybe at a time between 4 years of my period in the beginning in Delhi when I was jobless, penniless, everything was less.
When you met Shefali, basically.
Yes, when I met Shefali and she was there with me.
I'm still unclear how you all met. I know you told me she was in JNU, you lived opposite, but what was the first meeting? How did you all meet?
We had some friends a bunch of friends who didn't know how to face girls.
Okay.
And they thought that I can converse better. So they said that, why don't you? I mean, very weird. And when somebody introduced to her, and I was outsider. I was not part of JNU. I had done AMU and then came. I was looking for a job.
Jobless outsider.
Jobless outsider. I used to live in one of the servant quarters opposite JNU. So somebody introduced, but that introduction went a little ahead. I have no idea why, but I think there one line is that I was also suffering and she was also suffering. She had lost her father a couple of years back, 1.5 years back, and I was, of course, suffering because of being unable to find a job. So, and I think both of us were looking for honest relationship, I guess. So, yeah.
And that's probably where both of you all took a leap of faith.
Yes, I mean, she used to bring food from her hostel to feed me, and I was constantly for 4 years jobless. So you can imagine the pressure on her. I was not taking pressure at all.
Right.
I don't know why, because I was jobless, but yet I used to come back in the evening without realizing the tension. She used to tell that you don't look tense for being jobless and you don't look like stressed. And she used to pick up those odd jobs to do a job and find some money to give it to me. She would come to me leaving her classes and go here and there to get lift in the buses because we didn't have money. I remember DTC bus, we had a khata system even in DTC bus, and all the dhabas we had a khata system. But I don't know, somehow we stuck together to go through those 4 years. Now I see that those were the infrastructural period of building for the next life.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And what were the other leaps of faith you took after that?
So I got my first job in journalism as in IT magazine. I did it for 2.5 years. Then automatically I got an offer from Hindustan Times to do their website, which is hindustantimes.com and many .coms. And that is when I fell in love with the internet. And after that, for example, one leap of faith was that I used to run, for example, HT, I was very successfully running this .com business. But I left it because when I built equivalent to yahoo.com for HT, I'm not talking about the newspaper website. I'm talking in addition, we created a portal for HT and they got funding for $9 million for that. And they started a new setup and then they started looking for a new CEO. So I thought that, okay, they don't think that, I am capable of running. So I left it. Nobody would leave HT's job because they used to consider as a government paid job because at that time they still have a union in HT. And I left it and started a software company. 3 years I ran a software company. And then again, I fell in love with thinking internet and poverty alleviation. And I left it. We had no money and the company had no balance. And we still have 110 employees. I left it because I thought that this is what I need to do. And since then also we didn't have a penny, but we started working and always looking for work, not for money. And the work used to bring money.
And 20 years later, you still managed to juggle these two worlds of mainstream and grassroots, very few people do that. How do you do that?
Maybe because I like you, I used to write columns. So whatever I used to do, I got a column. Leslie is sitting there. He also is part of that newspaper. You are a part of that newspaper. I think 10 years I did write stories about what we were doing. And perhaps that kept me connected. And before that also I was a journalist. So I never left the storytelling part of me. And that also turned out to be advocacy tool because many people started reading and that also connected us to the grassroots. I think the question for me is that not that, the mainstream was not there, but I never left the grassroots. I could have easily left the grassroots with the limelight of mainstream. But no, I thought that the real story is there and the real problem is there, the real issue is there. And most of it, this gives me a satisfaction.
And you're the best dressed man I know. Tell me why you switched to wearing handloom in 2009.
Again, leap of faith. The comfort, purely comfort. So I thought that if people sleep in the most comfortable dress, how can you wear the same dress not outside? So that's about cloth. But then about, let's say, style or whatever. So that I picked up. I thought कि ठीक है, जो पहन के सोते हैं उसमें थोड़ा color change हो जाएगा, थोड़ा style change हो जाएगा, तो it will be better looking. Maybe because I am slightly aesthetically driven, and also maybe because I travel in villages. If you go to villages, they are the best dressed people. They are the most, beautiful people. Just because के पैसे नहीं उनके पास तो हमको लगता है कि अच्छा नहीं पहन रहे हैं या क्या है, but they look so beautiful. And I maybe aesthetics come from there also.
Tell us some more about the beauty of villages and then about the problems that you see there and that have always been there and that have still not gone. But first, let's talk about the beauty of villages.
So beauty of village is the strong connection between the 24-hour life cycle. So you have your own cattle, then you have your land, then whatever you eat, then you create a waste, and they all are cyclical. Somehow they are built in them. We segregate them. And we often listen in cities, professional life is different, personal life is different. I wonder why. How can it be different? How can it be not tensed at profession and be tensed at home? They both will reflect each other. So I feel that they have a very strong sense of, design life. in the sense the real design not for aesthetic design, design for real life architecture is and they also know how to curate things at low cost. Such as they are living there, they are living there is a low cost, and the also sense of satisfaction. Most of the rural people know that I need sun, I need light, I need to sleep so many hours, I need so much. So they have figured it out that what is the minimum that I need. So it's need based rather than desire based. I think that also is a wisdom that comes from there.
Yet, you've also told me that, religious segregation has grown dramatically and interfaith friendships have crumbled. WhatsApp is the main source of news. Casteism remains rampant even in 2023.
Everywhere, even in villages also.
About that? Yeah.
I have not seen even a single village where 2-3 castes live together. The only thing that they don't fight every day. And of course, in cities also, we don't fight every day. Class is our DNA. Caste is our DNA. Very brutal DNA, which bothers me every day. I have no idea how it started. It got so deeper into our life. And I see that reflection even in digital also. When we go for connectivity, they say कि ठाकुर के घर लगा दो, ब्राह्मण के घर लगा दो, मतलब जो मतलब इसके जो मजबूत है उसके घर लगा दो. When we go and make it connectivity available or a digital center available with a Dalit house, then the upper caste will not come there. If you make the woman in charge of it, many men will hesitate to come. And we learned through the system that, even though between all those classes and caste, computer somehow and IT somehow was still neutralizing factor. I mean, among many other factors, this was the most neutralizing because the first link to IT is education, and everybody want their children to get education or linked and become IT literate. That's the first leap of faith or a first, light at the end of the tunnel. That's how it is. But there is not a single place that we have gone where these kind of senses are not there. It's very deeply there. It's very, very deeply there.
So how does one tackle this? Or
I really, I would say that we have 2,000 centers at the moment across the country. I think 80 to 90 or even more than that percentage are all run by OBC and lower caste and minorities, very few upper caste. More than 50 to 60% are run by women. That's again extreme neutralizing factor if women run it. And also from the perspective of gender. Is a great. Also, I see that digital is also works as a anti-patriarchy. I mean, very subtly, These are the two, three tools that we are using to get inside. I mean, you can also ask our other people, they all are outside, that how it works. But this is what giving us a little bit of hope.
Tell us a bit more about these flagship community information resource centers. What happens in these places run by women?
So these centers are basically like any other centers, or you can say Chopal. These centers are basically having connectivity, having digital device, having biometric machine, having printer, a projector, and so on and so forth. The primary objective of these center is that it should run on its own on a commercial basis or a sustainable basis by a woman is the first criteria. The second is that this should be able to give a chance to the villagers and everybody for which they have to go 10 kilometers, 20 kilometers, they get all access there. So whether it's access to entitlement, which is the largest issue these days because government has made most of the entitlement access across the barriers of technology. That is the first attraction. The second attraction is financial services, withdrawal of money, deposit of money, and so on and so forth. Third is education. Literacy, education, Naukri, and things like that. Fourth is access to health. That too got aggregated after COVID. that gives a video conferencing kind of link to the doctor, to the person sitting there. And then after that, everything else is depend on the entrepreneur who is running it, how creative you are. You are so creative that you start selling, let's say, dongles, or you start selling 10 rupees top up, or you start selling something
tell
else.
us some of the things people are doing, like creatively, like are they actually?
So creatively, I think maybe next panel when Natasha is going to do, she
Right.
maybe highlight. But I'll tell you, one person in Rajasthan runs WhatsApp newspaper. Beside running the center, every evening that guy goes and creates a PDF file of news in Hindi, writes it, edits it, and circulate every day.
Wow.
Every day. Then there is another person who runs podcast,
And which is not like, which is
not our this is that we have encouraged so much, and we have allowed them to run as an entrepreneur, to a micro entrepreneur so well that they have flourished.
And what kind of news does he focus on?
All political, other kind, all kind of news. In general, it's like a daily newspaper. And designed is also
hopefully
like
without the misinformation.
no, yeah, I mean that's the reason why he is still part of our network. Then there are many people who sell products online. There are many people who go many kilometers on cycle and bike to provide the services. Many people do at the time of disaster, they become social workers, they become charity providers.
Right.
So it goes on and on. So when you go to if you like in COVID time, UNICEF funded us to convert almost 885 centers into a health dissemination centers. So all these girls and women and men, they became health warriors in the sense that cycle pe mobile laga ke and speaker laga ke, they were announcing everywhere. Some of them were writing on the wall. Some of them were distributing pamphlets. Some of them were making databases on WhatsApp and distributing information. So you will not see that a digital person doing wall writing, but they did, because they are the only literate, educated, and properly equipped people in the villages. The idea is that, we consider that all the backward districts translate into about 350 districts, translate into about 3,500 blocks, translate into about 1,15,000 panchayat. We envisage that all those places should have one woman entrepreneur with digital centers and literacy to provide all kind of services to the villages, but gradually they should be equipped enough to safeguard them also from misinformation and fake news.
Where do your constant stream of ideas come from? Like, I mean, there's so many, like you go out, you see all the number of programs, and now I just saw Bookaloom. I mean, where do these ideas come from?
So
tell us about Bookaloom, but it's one of your newer
it's a part of our DigiKargha. DigiKargha is a Section 8 separate company, came out of DEF because we work with craftsperson and artisans. Again, you will say, why craftsperson artisans? Because they are the biggest creative people in the villages. They are the largest creative and designing people in the villages, and they are still poor because they are producers. So we started working with them, but now we also realize that, can we give a chance to people like you or anybody who live in the city to directly work with them? So you book a, time with them, and tell them, this is what I want. Can you make it happen? Also, it came from an idea that they need to talk directly, and you need to talk directly with the producer, because there are so many middlemen in the middle, which takes all your cost of retailership, and it's a less cost for them. Less money earning for them that they reach there. So there is a middle layer which is a lot, and that digital can actually overcome all the middle layer, and both the producer and the consumer can talk to each other directly.
Quickly tell us about some of the other interesting ideas that you all have experimented with.
So one of the latest idea, I won't say too many ideas, is that A code we have started, which is art and art and collective for digital empowerment. So this is a new idea came because of the current environment of the country, which is very autocratic, authoritative and subjugative. You don't have a liberty to speak, you don't have a liberty to act, and so on and so forth. So we thought that why not use art as a expression for agitation, for your subjugation, for everything. So we thought that let's create a bundle of people and their work and their organization as a cohort and use art as an expression of not agreeing, or anything, or social justice, or real justice and everything. So this is the latest one, which is very exciting because people like you who are storytellers, who are writers, or people who are filmmakers, people who are expressionists, people who are writers, people who are storytellers, they can be part of this one to tell that I don't like internet shutdown, rather than going on Jantar Mantar and get beaten. And internet shutdown is not good for the poor people or for economy or anything, or for that matter, trolling, or for that matter, anything. I'm not saying only digital issues, but all issues.
Which has been happening actually since CA, NRC. There was a lot of like visual artists protesting in brilliant ways.
Absolutely. Like stand-up comedy.
So you're saying you're organizing these people?
No, so we have created a collective. It's a collective. It's a collective. And we got some funding in place to help bring them come together to actually, create, and they feel powerful with each other also, because that's, alone they are very single, you alone could be, pointed out or something, but all of us together can become more powerful.
And there was a GI project also, right?
GI project, this is a beauty. I mean, I also say that Leap of Faith has also got a very strong linkage of serendipity. I realize that all GI location is directly related to the poor areas, and also related to the IP, and also related to the originality, like, the Mysore sari, or the Mysore pie, or let's say Kanchipuram or Chanderi. They all are GI location, geographical indication. But we are failing to use that as a tool of economic empowerment or creating livelihood. And in the digital era, if Kerala can become a God's own country, then any GI should become a God's own country, in terms of attraction, in terms of highlighting that rice or whatever, or any particular thing. So when we started thinking, we got, one of the companies say that we will give you 2.5 crore to work for 3 years on 10 GIs in Karnataka and Tamil Nadu. So हम बहुत excited हो गए. So we thought that they are giving us 10, but we will create a portal of all GIs in one place, so that can become attractive. And we are hoping that we can have a digital dissemination center or a attraction center in all GI locations also. So you will, if you go to Mysore, you will see very soon there. If you, so 10 location we are going to start working with, but gradually the purpose is that how GI location can become a tool of attracting consumers to the local people, either as a means of tourism or their product, and create a local livelihood for the poor people.
So what will be disseminated at these centers?
These centers is something like, imagine going to Mysore and some poor fellow is talking about GI and taking you around and doing rickshaw mein leke ja raha hai, or something like that. So basically highlighting GI means using that as a tool and become an advertising tool to in terms of knowledge, in terms of wisdom, in terms of content, and also see if we can also open some shops and those kind of things.
You said earlier that Shefali always says that, you don't get flustered by anything. You're always like, whatever's happening in your life and all, you're cool. You don't look like you don't get hassled by anything.
That is true, except that I'm not very cool in the last 7 years. Ever since
8 now.
8 now. Ever since we have like I said, my life started because of the liberty in my village, the freedom in my village. At that time, it was from my father's dictum, but now the whole country has become like that. So obviously not very thing. But I also feel that we have to do a lot of work. We cannot just pass it on to somebody else.
Right. I'll end on that thought-provoking note, but we'll open it up to questions.
Yes, anybody? Yeah. Sorry to bother all of you for, you must have come to see some tech innovation or something and you started listening these personal stories.
Anyone has a question for Osama?
Yeah.
Sure.
Would love to understand how, when you started, did you anticipated that India will have this kind of penetration of internet, this kind of penetration that will be the center of world with the cheapest internet and this kind of accessibility? And when this was happening, how were you reacting? And where do you see this will go?
And you should also talk about the paradox of connected India.
Yeah.
Connected and yet.
So, Mohit, I don't know if I have an answer to that one, because if you think through my glass, I am only looking at the unconnected and there is still 600 million. So I remember I was sitting in one of the ministries and usually I never used to go and wait for somebody to meet. But in one of the bureaucrats really made me to sit for a very long time. When I got up to meet him, I told him that, India mein bahut gaon hai aur bahut poor hai. If you don't have a time, I will go to some other village. Don't worry. So, my angle of look is कि जरूरत कहाँ है और जरूरत इतनी ज्यादा है और इतनी जगहों पे है कि you always have an open field to work. I mean, imagine I'm writing an article when I used to, in 1998, 99, I used to write for Industry Standard in Silicon Valley, 200 pieces. They used to pay me $1 a word at that time. And I used to write for how internet was progressing in India, right? And when I was reading those stories, for me, things haven't changed yet. Because at that time, there is a story that I was reanalyzing was saying that India, MTNL and VSNL is starting to give ISDN line to Apollo Hospital to do video conferencing and show doctors' work to coordinate with American doctor to get some consulting. And telemedicine still hasn't reached to that level even after 27 years. So we are as much connected as we are unconnected. And that is the paradox that we say 700 million people are connected. That is a number. We are meaningfully not connected more than 200 million people. Meaningfully, that means can you do transaction? Can you pay online? Can you download video? Can you see all those things? It's not because of the literacy, because of the speed, because of the buffering, because of so many things. And even if that happens, 600 million people are still unconnected. And why it matters is because if you are unconnected, you don't get Narega payment. If you are unconnected, you don't get your ration. If you are unconnected, your Aadhaar and the PAN card is not linked. So life matters now. That's the paradox that I'm talking about.
And they're still paying $1 a word, by the way, all these years later. Any other questions?
Yeah, Nikit.
Hi, Osama. I had a question around, because you've been speaking a lot about the ones that are not connected, right? But of course, in the last few years in particular, even though, people are not connected, people are definitely being watched, and that kind of, being seen by the state through technology in the form of, various forms of surveillance. How have you, as somebody who's, thinking about connectedness through technology, how have you made meaning of the way in which this project of seeing people and also censoring people, how has that been put into motion, and how do you make meaning of that through your work?
So you are absolutely right. We have become a panopticon country, totally. There's no doubt about it. Not that it was not possible earlier. In fact, online, we always have a print of your watching and being watched, But in real life, if somebody is watching you, you won't know. In online, it is still possible to be tracked. The person who is watching can be tracked online, but in offline, it is still not. There is a possibility that you won't be known. अगर मैं आपके घर के गेट के आगे कहीं कोने में खड़े होकर देख रहा हूँ, आप कब आ रहे हो जा रहे हो, किसी को पता नहीं चलेगा. But online, if I am watching you, I can be tracked. I can be pointed out. Having said that, I don't have an answer, but मुझे भी लगता है कि गांव में मैं गया, मैंने connectivity कराई, I told them how to use this, and then seeing that the person is forwarding some bullshit message, I taught them how to use WhatsApp, but they are actually forwarding message which is actually not good for health or good for society. This is the dichotomy. Now we do more digital literacy about how to point out misinformation than how to use mobile for making transactions. We are telling them what not to do more than what to do online. Yeah, there is. Now, earlier our course was all only how to use this, that, and what you can do. Now our half the course is about what not to do. And how to keep yourself safe, how कैसे password रखें, क्या मत खोलें, only 5 ही app खोलो, ये जवाब. So its no's are so many, don'ts are so many that you don't know what to do. And especially because for the first time user, it's very dangerous. First time user को क्या है? First time user do not even know that if somebody is calling with a ill feel or whatever, they will send you a message saying कि click करो नहीं तो तुम्हारा बिजली चला जाएगा. अरे मैंने तो बिजली भी पे कर दिया, सब कुछ किया. When I click, money is withdrawn from my bank. So there is a huge what you call as the insecurity or security literacy that we have to do rather than something like. But more directly reply to your question, I would say that governments and the corporates are certainly using technology less for inclusion and more for exploitation. It is inbuilt in their agenda. Yeah.
There's 2 questions over there.
I don't think I answer.
Yeah.
So my question is regarding education. Considering you're bringing in so much connectivity to the villages, how do you plan to impact education through connectivity?
So I see that education is going to be the most affected area as an institution. I see that very soon in the near future, there will be a huge impact on the institutional exploitation of everybody who seek education, because education is totally wide open. It can be tried and it can be tested, even online education, individual, you can choose teachers and everything, all that is open. So I see that education is going to go through alternative education is not going to be only a fad or a cup of tea for few people, but I feel that education is going to be as an institution challenged for good, very soon. That's what I see. I can go deeper because education मुझे बिल्कुल पसंद नहीं है और लेकिन मैं in general, so what is looking like that Byju's of the world who is trying to take over the education is not going to happen in general. People are going to be liberalized for access to education sooner, very soon. Pardon me?
Thanks to ChatGPT.
ChatGPT is something like खुदा ने आपको दिमाग दिया, इस्तेमाल करना है तो करो, नहीं करना मत करो. So ChatGPT is exactly like that. You need to figure out how do you want to use it or not. I mean, for many people, our team, I'm sure they are using it for making proposals in a very short time. I saw Saurabh was using this and many more people were using it. Some people were also discussing that I'm receiving too many mails, can it be replied? So I think is that ChatGPT is certainly going to challenge us to think contextually and use contextually. It is not, and those who will not will suffer like anybody else. So ChatGPT is one word, is saying it is going to challenge you whether you are a bot or a human. For education,
Instead of
Yeah, I mean, if you keep the examination and certification system intact, then ChatGPT is going to be dangerous. And if you are not liberalize education, then it will not.
So Osama is actually connected to the same question that Aruna here. So you're talking about, I mean, there's already digital exclusion and a lot of digital divide that exists. Now, at the one end, we have a lot of unconnected people. On the other hand, 4 months back, 5 months back, you had ChatGPT suddenly coming up and changing the world with the number of LLMs and a lot of new tools that are coming up. Fake news is going to become exponentially. I mean, you could at one point of time still figure out that something is fake. Right now, you can create videos which can mimic anyone, right? I mean, there's an AI newscaster, I think, on Aaj Tak. There was anything else which has come out. I forgot the name of the person or whatever that.
I will give you four.
So how is it going to affect? I mean, I clearly see that at one end there is a existing digital divide, and there is an tool that is going to exponentially increase it among a certain set of people, and not necessarily help a lot of people. So how is it going to help?
I will give you 4 examples. All this has happened in front of you in your own life, which look like that it is going to change. But you have seen it. When internet came, everybody thought that it will change for everyone. We all are in front of each other. Now, nobody knows what is internet. Everybody knows what is Facebook, what is Instagram, what is Google. Internet has, totally vanished. The whole openness and the bigness and the largeness of internet is gone, and we are now suffering from these 5 companies. Who has squeezed the internet into totally consumeristic oriented thing. And that's what they struggle. So then .com came. Everybody thought that .com will solve everybody's problem. And my friend Anshu Gupta says that .com se roti thodi milega. So that also we have seen. Then we have seen mobile. Then we have seen app, right? We thought that app will solve all the problem. Or challenge everybody who is not going to join. And then now we have reached to ChatGPT. I think we are just, overreacting to ChatGPT at the moment. I think we need to figure out how AI as a means of technology going to give power to the autocrats and the government and the corporates to take over the life of the people is what. I mean, not ChatGPT is not, it's just one little example of what. It is actually the AI as a mechanism, as a tool, or as a system that is going to empower these people to control. Certainly that is a matter of issue. Yeah, can we also make it last?
Last question.
One question.
You wanted.
In spite of all its flaws of internet and digital technology, there are also quite a few potentials. Like I see that Narega website gives so much of information regarding each person who has worked for last 15, 20 years. Now we can have similar kind of transparency of other programs of each government, state or central government, and provide data real time, so that you and I can see it, and people whom for it is meant to be can also see it and ask questions. So this kind of transparency can lead to accountability. There is a potential in this digital technology which is not being utilized. And even people like us, who work with marginalized people, vulnerable people, do not demand that government put out its data in real time for all of us to scrutinize it. So how can we go ahead with these kind of demands or these kind of efforts, like the DF and organizations like ours, how can we take this forward? What do you see there?
So my understanding and the trend shows that technology is always adopted by the policy makers and the administrators, showing the people that we want to use it for your good, but end up exploiting them. That is what I have seen. So what you are seeing is a perfect example. There is no doubt about it. Even the latest dictum in Narega for marking attendance online with a photograph on the ground, they are saying that we want to be, honest, we want to give the money to the honest people, and those people are working on the ground. That's their prerogative. Actually, they are ending up not giving it. Similarly, Telangana government developed a AI policy and AI-driven data, and they end up themselves losing about 100,000 people declaring dead. Because डेटाबेस में से एक लाइन कट गया, आपके रजिस्टर में से एक पन्ना हटा लिया और उसको डिक्लेयर कर दे, मर जाएगा तो कैसा लगेगा? आप ये सोचो थोड़ी देर के लिए. There is a register of all the people. उसमें से कोई एक पेज फाड़ दे, ठीक है, तो आपको लगेगा इतने ही लोग जिंदा हैं क्या? That is what happens in from one table being deleted from one program. And then they said that no, it was only 78% correct. Now we are aspiring for 98% or something. So, it is always that they want to tell you that they want to serve you better, but they end up forgetting those people in a process that they exclude or they end up excluding. What I'm saying is that a lady who is only depending on ration in a village in a Jharkhand, for her 24 hour is also long enough to be hungry, for not having ration. But my program not working and I'm getting better and better, and 5 years down the line, it will become better to give you the transparency is too much a thing. So I'm again not replying as a solution, but what I'm saying scenario, intention pe farak padta hai aur kuch nahi.
And actually, from what I understand, even though the government is collecting much more data about its citizens, citizens are getting less access to public data.
हम कह रहे हैं ठीक है तुम मेरी जिंदगी ले लो, लेकिन मेरे लिए अच्छा करो. ये मत बोलो कि तुम्हारे जिंदगी ले रहे हैं ताकि कल तुमको जल्दी से इजाजत दे दे ऊपर जाने के लिए. ये तो नहीं हो सकता ना. So that's what it is being done. Most of the time, that is what it is being done.
On that happy note.
One last question, please. What? So what I find more amazing than the work that you do is that you've been able to organically scale this organization from your dorm room to hundreds of centers all across the country, and also leave a legacy of 20 years and a lot more years to come. What are your thoughts on scaling an organization, or rather, what is your advice on how to scale an organization to the level that you have?
We are in the startup city of India. You have to give some startup advice. I forgot to ask you this key question.
If you go to village, every nook and corner is a startup. हर ठेले वाला startup है. So, जिसके ठेले हम religion के नाम पे आज का धक्का देके हटा देते हैं. So anyway, Vijay, we can have a longer conversation, but relating to solution to the problem is very important. The difference between a social entrepreneurship and social organization is that we first find the problem, then find the solution. In a startup, they first find the solution, then they look for problems. No, I'm not kidding. I mean, so if you just reverse this, even if you have done the solution, but if you reverse it by looking at related problems, whether geographically or age-wise or whatever, I think you will have the scale up much faster than you can think of.
Thank you so much, Osama.
Thank you so much.